assure the American people that we're doing everything we can each day to confront and ultimately defeat this horrible, invisible enemy. We're at war. In a true sense, we're at war. And we're fighting an invisible enemy. Think of that. So, and I feel it, actually. I'm a wartime president. This is a war. This is a war. Different kind of a war than we've ever had.
Yeah, the only way to issue in martial law, aka military law, is when you have an enemy to fight. And this enemy is invisible, based on health and disease. So they are issuing in a concept called medical martial law, which is a whole hell of a lot easier than staging a physical enemy like those terrorizers.
We must stop the terror. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
So you guys might have seen the movie Contagion, a movie about a viral pandemic which begins near China, is a variation of SARS, and comes from a bat in the movie. Yeah, so similar to the coronavirus, right? Well, let's just watch this clip from it now.
Alan, today on Twitter, you wrote that the truth about this virus is being kept from the world by the CDC, by the World Health Organization, to allow friends of the current administration to benefit from it, both financially and physically.
There are therapies we know are effective right now, like forsythia, and they don't even appear on the CDC website.
Yeah, there's a herbal treatment in the movie called forsythia, which when I first watched the movie, I thought it was just a made-up name. But forsythia is a real plant in real life. And guess frickin' what? They are using this plant in China right now as an alternative treatment for coronavirus.
But right now, our best defense has been social distancing. No handshaking, staying home when you're sick, washing your hands frequently.
Yes, he is exclaiming, just like now, social distancing is what works. Lawrence Fishburne, the CDC director. But there is a person he is talking to, the news station reporter. Who is that? Well, that is no other than a person in real life who is now on CNN almost 10 years later doing the same thing as their chief medical correspondent.
You look at these extraordinary measures that are taking place in China, the largest quarantine in the history of the world, the policies, the travel restrictions, all of that, they say, was really designed to slow this down, not stop it. It's a tiny little virus. It doesn't respect boundaries and borders. You know, I talked to Dr. Redfield, who's the head of the CDC.
Yup, talking to the CDC director, informing the American public, putting them side by side. It's the same damn guy from the movie doing the same damn thing. What was a major theme in that movie? The vaccine. Yes, as the virus becomes more deadly, a vaccine is all the population can think of in the movie. The death toll reaches 2.5 million people in the US and over 26 million people worldwide in the movie.
If we did that, in other words, if we just kept the business as usual and didn't do anything to stop it or impede it, could have been 2.2 million people could have died. 2.2 million people.
Yep, 2.2 million in the US is a worst case scenario, which is so close to the 2.5 million US casualties in Contagion. If deaths start to ramp up and a vaccine is created, are we going to be scrambling to get it? Well, that looks how things are going to be playing out. And if you kindly tuned into my live stream over the weekend, you know exactly what this leads into. ID 2020 and their global ID and vaccination program. Going to ID 2020's website, it's obvious they are gung-ho on creating a global ID. But their alliance is important. Who is behind ID 2020? As we can see, Accenture, Microsoft, the Rockefeller Foundation, and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. Who is behind Gavi? Of course, Bill and Melinda Gates.
You know, things can reopen if we do the right things in the summer, but it won't be completely normal. You'll still be very worried. You know, we may decide masks are important, although right now they're in short supply for health workers, so people should not go and hoard those. But the capacity of that can be brought up, so it may be something that, like China today, everybody who's walking around is wearing one of those. So we'll have a lot of unusual measures until we get the world vaccinated. You know, 7 billion people, that's a tall order, but it is where we need to get to, despite a lot of things in between now and then to minimize the damage.
You predicted this pandemic almost to a T, and maybe it was because we were dealing with other things at the time, we didn't really pay that much attention. Is there anything else you want to warn us about now that we should be looking forward to? Is there anything else that keeps you up at night?
Well, this is a naturally caused epidemic, and as bad as it is, it looks, if you have reasonable treatment, to have a 1% fatality. There could be epidemics that are worse than that, including ones that aren't naturally caused, that are a form of bioterrorism. But one thing I feel good about is this is such a big change to the world that this time it won't be like Ebola, which was just there in West Africa or Central Africa. This time, the tens of billions to have the diagnostics standing by, the vaccine manufacturing standing by, this time we will get ready for the next epidemic.
Well, I hope your words are prophetic once again. Thank you so much for your time. Good luck in all of your work, and stay healthy out there. We need you.
Hey, thanks, Trevor.
Hopefully we'll be playing tennis again soon.
You bet. Looking forward to it.
Why do you think ID 2020 announced just before the outbreak in September of 2019 this? ID 2020 and partners launch a program to provide digital ID with vaccines. Could this be the digital certificates he was speaking about in vaccines?
Eventually, what we'll have to have is certificates of who's a recovered person, who's a vaccinated person, because you don't want people moving around the world where you'll have some countries that won't have it under control. Sadly, you don't want to completely block off the ability for those, people to go there and come back.
Electronic mind control research is not new. A scientific milestone in this area came in the 1960s when Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrated remote control over a charging bull. By connecting a radio antenna to electrodes inserted into the bull's brain, Delgado proved that the animal's aggressive impulses could be thwarted by electronically manipulating the bull's muscle reflexes.
Do you realize the fantastic possibilities if from the outside we could modify the inside? Could we give messages to the inside? But the beauty is that now we are not using electrodes.
In recent years, Delgado has shown that the behavior of monkeys can be altered using low-power, pulsating magnetic fields. But in these experiments, there were no antenna implants.
Any function in the brain, emotions, intellect, personality, could be perhaps modified by this non-invasive technology.
Delgado's research has so far been limited to animals. But in the Soviet Union, a radio frequency, or RF device, has been used for over 30 years to manipulate the moods of mental patients.
5G is a weapon. It's used by the military. Do you know these 5G millimeter wave technologies are used to scatter crowds? They drive up in this technology when they want to scatter a cloud, and they put out these frequencies in a much higher power than 5G will be initially with us, but the same frequencies. And people scatter because they get the feeling their skin is on fire. Because the human body, including the skin, is an antenna. It interacts with frequencies and it receives and transmits information. At the cutting edge of understanding of DNA, scientists know that DNA is a receiver-transmitter of information.